2 miles beneath the surface of the Pacific Ocean in a place so dark that light has never touched it, not once, in the entire history of our planet. Something impossible was happening. There was oxygen being made with no sunlight, no plants, no photosynthesis, nothing that science said could create it. For as long as we've studied this planet, we've believed one simple rule. Oxygen comes from light. Plants, algae, anything green. They take sunlight and they turn it into the air we breathe. That rule has held for billions of years. It's one of the most basic facts in all of biology. And then, in the crushing darkness of the deep Pacific, a group of scientists found something that broke that rule completely. They called it dark oxygen. And when the news broke, it didn't just surprise people. It shook the scientific world to its core. Headlines called it one of the most important ocean discoveries in a generation. Some researchers said it could rewrite the story of how life itself began on Earth. Others whispered that if oxygen could appear in total darkness down here, then maybe, just maybe, life could exist in the cold, lightless corners of other planets too. For 2 years, the world believed the ocean's darkest secret had finally been cracked. But here's what almost nobody is telling you. What happened after that discovery is stranger, messier, and far more shocking than the discovery itself. Because right now, in 2026, that same breakthrough is unraveling in front of our eyes. Scientists are accusing each other of hiding data. A major science journal has issued a public warning about the very paper that made headlines everywhere. And the man who made the discovery has quietly admitted that parts of his own findings might not hold up. This is the story almost nobody is covering, not the version from 2 years ago, the real version, the one happening right now. So stick with me, because by the end of this video, you're going to understand something most people online still get completely wrong about the ocean's darkest secret. Let's start at the beginning. In 2013, a marine scientist named Andrew Sweetman was aboard a research vessel in a remote stretch of the Pacific Ocean called the Clarion-Clipperton Zone. It sits between Hawaii and Mexico, and down there, 4,000 meters below the surface, sunlight has never existed, not for a single second in the history of the Earth. Sweetman's sensors were picking up something that made absolutely no sense. Oxygen levels on the seafloor were going up, not down. In total darkness at the bottom of the ocean, oxygen was somehow increasing. He didn't believe it. Nobody would. He assumed his equipment was broken. He told his students to pack up the sensors and ship them back to the manufacturer because, in his words, they were just giving out gibberish. But then it happened again and again. Across 4 separate research voyages to the same spot, the readings kept showing the same impossible thing. So Sweetman and his team started looking at what was actually down there on the ocean floor. And what they found were these strange, dark, potato-sized lumps of metal scattered across the seabed like scoops of coal. Scientists call them polymetallic nodules. They're packed with nickel, cobalt, copper, and manganese. The same metals used in your phone, your laptop, electric car batteries, and solar panels. The theory Sweetman proposed was almost science fiction. He suggested these metallic lumps were acting like natural batteries, generating just enough electrical charge to literally split seawater apart into hydrogen and oxygen, a process called electrolysis. The same basic chemistry used in some hydrogen fuel technology, except this time, nature was doing it on its own, in total darkness, without a single ray of sunlight involved. If true, this wasn't just a quirky ocean fact. This challenged one of the most fundamental assumptions in all of biology. For decades, scientists believed complex life on Earth became possible only after photosynthesis started pumping oxygen into the atmosphere roughly 2.7 billion years ago. But if oxygen could be produced another way, without light, without plants, then maybe the story of how life began needed to be rewritten completely. Sweetman published his research in the journal Nature Geoscience in July of 2024. The world reacted immediately. Major outlets called it one of the most significant discoveries in oceanography in years. Scientists floated the idea that if oxygen can be generated in the pitch-black depths of our own ocean, it opens the door to the possibility of life existing on other cold, sunless worlds. Moons like Europa, planets we've never even reached. One director at the Scottish Association for Marine Science put it simply. He said, having another source of oxygen on this planet beyond photosynthesis has consequences and implications that are utterly profound. For a moment, it felt like humanity had genuinely uncovered one of the ocean's darkest secrets. But almost immediately, something else started happening behind the scenes. A fight. See, those same metallic nodules Sweetman was studying aren't just scientifically interesting, they're incredibly valuable. Mining companies have been eyeing the Clarion-Clipperton Zone for years, hoping to scoop up billions of dollars worth of battery metals straight off the ocean floor. One company in particular, the Metals Company, had actually helped fund some of the research that led to this discovery. And once the paper suggested these nodules might be ecologically vital, producing oxygen that deep sea life may depend on, that same company suddenly had a very strong financial reason to want the whole idea discredited. They pushed back hard, public statements, rebuttals submitted to the journal, claims that no credible scientist had ever detected anything like dark oxygen using standard methods. But it wasn't just the mining industry raising red flags. Actual independent researchers started digging into the data too, and what they found was troubling. A detailed analysis published in 2025 argued that Sweetman's proposed electrolysis process actually violates the first and second laws of thermodynamics. In plain terms, the physics behind the theory, according to critics, simply doesn't add up. Other scientists pointed out inconsistencies in the original oxygen readings and noted that the voltage the nodules were producing wasn't nearly strong enough to actually split water molecules apart, the exact mechanism the entire theory depended on. Then came the part that turned this from a scientific disagreement into something far more serious. Critics allege that data contradicting the original theory was left out of the published paper entirely, specifically evidence suggesting the manganese nodules could not have been responsible for the oxygen spike at all. If true, that's not just a mistake. That's the kind of thing that gets a paper investigated for research misconduct. And here's where it gets even stranger. Sweetman himself has since admitted that some of the landers used in the original study didn't actually contain full nodules at all, just small particles of manganese oxide, not the intact battery rocks the entire headline-grabbing theory was built around. Faced with mounting criticism, Sweetman has publicly stepped back from both of his major original claims, that the nodules produce oxygen, and that they do it through electrolysis. Independent scientists have now called for the paper to be retracted completely. And then, on April 8th, 2026, Nature Geoscience did something journals rarely do. They posted a formal editor's note directly on the original article, warning readers that aspects of the paper are currently under review due to serious concerns raised by the scientific community. One of the harshest critics summed it up bluntly. He said, quote, "We don't believe in this," and added that he hopes the journal retracts the paper entirely. So here's where things actually stand right now in the middle of 2026. The scientists behind the original discovery are preparing a brand new expedition funded by the Nippon Foundation using custom-built landers capable of surviving pressure 1,200 times greater than what we feel on the surface. These machines are heading straight back down into the Clarion-Clipperton zone to try to settle this once and for all. Sweetman claims the new landers will be able to confirm or deny dark oxygen production within just 24 to 48 hours of coming back to the surface. Meanwhile, a rival research group from Germany's Geomar Helmholtz Center says their own independent work has shown absolutely no hint of oxygen production from these nodules whatsoever. So did scientists really solve the ocean's darkest secret? Or did they accidentally create one of the biggest unresolved controversies in modern marine science? Right now, the honest answer is we don't fully know yet. And that in itself might be the most fascinating part of this entire story. Because while everyone online moved on to the next headline back in 2024, this mystery never actually closed. It's still playing out right now, thousands of meters beneath the surface of the ocean. But this isn't the only ocean mystery making waves in 2026. Because while the dark oxygen debate rages on, scientists actually did solve another deep sea puzzle, one that had genuinely stumped researchers for years. Back in 2023, a remotely operated vehicle called Deep Discoverer was exploring the Gulf of Alaska, more than 2 miles below the surface, when it stumbled onto something strange stuck to a rock. A smooth, golden, mound-shaped object with a hole in the middle. Nobody on the team could identify it. Not right away, not for weeks, and eventually not for years. Most of the time, when researchers find something unfamiliar on the ocean floor, they can identify it within days just by comparing notes with other scientists. But this golden orb resisted every attempt. It became one of those rare mysteries that just wouldn't crack. For 2.5 years, it sat there, unexplained, sparking wild theories about what it could possibly be. Then in 2026, using advanced DNA sequencing technology, researchers finally cracked it. The golden orb turned out to be the remains of a giant deep-sea anemone, specifically the leftover base tissue that anchors the animal to rocky surfaces on the sea floor. Mystery solved. For real this time, no controversy, no retraction, just old-fashioned scientific persistence finally paying off. And that same spirit of discovery is happening all over the ocean right now at a pace that might genuinely shock you. In 2026 alone, a massive global research effort called the Ocean Census identified over 1,100 brand new marine species in a single year. New ghost sharks, symbiotic worms living inside what scientists describe as a glass castle, crabs, corals, sea urchins, and creatures pulled from depths of over 6.5 kilometers. And here's the number that really puts things in perspective. Scientists estimate that up to 90% of all marine species on this planet haven't even been discovered yet. 90%. We know more about the surface of the moon than we know about most of our own ocean floor. And then there's the moment that finally answered a 100-year-old question. The colossal squid, the heaviest invertebrate known to exist on Earth, had never once been filmed alive in its natural habitat. Not once in over a century since it was first discovered. Scientists only ever found them dead or as remains inside the stomachs of whales and seabirds. Then in 2026, a research vessel near the South Sandwich Islands finally captured it on camera, swimming freely 2,000 feet beneath the surface. And in a twist nobody expected, the massive predator humanity had waited 100 years to see turned out to be a baby. Fully grown, this species can stretch over 20 feet long and weigh more than 1,000 pounds. And we still don't fully understand how it lives, hunts, or survives down there. So when you put it all together, here's the truth about the ocean's darkest secret. Some mysteries really have been solved. The golden orb, finally identified after 2.5 years. The colossal squid, finally caught on camera after a century of searching. But the biggest one, the discovery that made global headlines and briefly rewrote what we thought we knew about the origin of oxygen and life itself, that mystery isn't closed. It's not confirmed. It's not busted either. Right now in 2026, it's still being fought over in labs, research vessels, and scientific journals around the world. And maybe that's the real lesson hiding underneath all of this. The ocean covers over 70% of our planet. And even now, with submarines that can survive crushing pressure and cameras that can capture creatures no human has ever seen alive, we are still barely scratching the surface of what's actually down there. The ocean's darkest secret might not be one single discovery at all. It might be the fact that we've explored more of outer space than we have our own ocean floor, and every single expedition keeps proving just how much we still don't know. If this story blew your mind, make sure you're subscribed, because there is a lot more of the ocean still waiting to be uncovered, and trust me, this will not be the last secret it gives up.